Vampires SMP has so many layers of hidden lore that it can be hard to keep it all straight, but throughout the entire series there has been a constant threat looming over the server, a vicious, monstrous threat which has already affected the lives of several of the members for the worst. What, vampires? No, I'm talking about werewolves. Before we get started, a little disclaimer. This video will contain spoilers for up to episode 5 of Vampires SMP. I'm going to try to avoid massive ones such as the identities of the vampires, but there was so much lore revealed in episode 5 that I literally had to rewrite this entire script because of it. So if you're not caught up, especially with Avid, Shelby, and Pearl's episodes, you might want to go watch those first. Don't worry, I'll wait. Is everyone caught up? Perfect, here we go. For those who don't know, Vampires SMP is the latest in a series of short-running Minecraft SMPs by POW Creations. The basic premise is this: 14 players arrive in an abandoned town called Oakhurst and decide to settle down there. But secretly, 2 of the players are vampires, whose goal is to take over Oakhurst by killing and converting the rest of the town's inhabitants. And while the vampires are cool and all, this theory is not about them. No, I instead want to focus on another type of monster which has been implied to exist in this world: werewolves. Now, as far as we know, we have yet to see any werewolves appear in the series proper. There are a lot of theories about characters being werewolves, but they've all been either debunked or don't hold enough water to be confirmed. No, just because Ren has dog in his username does not mean that he's a werewolf. Trust me, I tried working him into this theory, but he's just Ren. But there are several players who are implied to be connected to werewolves in some way. Today we'll be diving into who they are, and more importantly, how they might also be connected to each other. Let's start with the most obvious one, Shelby. She's an avid reader of fantasy novels, particularly those written by a certain Mr. M, which you might think stands for mythical on account of who plays him, but considering that his books mostly involve sparkly vampires, I think it might stand for something else. Welcome to DiscoTech, where you come for the werewolf theories and stay for the sausage is a gender-bent Stephanie Meyer lore. Anyway, since episode 1, Shelby has been saying she thinks that her father was killed by a werewolf. Initially, she claimed that the reason she left Sunnyside Cliff was to find out more about the monster that killed him. We later learned that there was more to it than that, but the actual reasons don't have much to do with werewolves, so you can watch her episodes for the full story. The important takeaway is that Shelby believed a werewolf was responsible, though she didn't have much proof. Until she met Pearl. Now, Pearl's backstory is complicated, to say the least, but there are a few details which have come to light in recent episodes. Pearl is also from Sunnyside Cliff and came from a wealthy background. At some point, she lost her parents, although she adamantly insists that they aren't dead. She also became a werewolf hunter at some point. You know, just for fun. Now, I don't know about you, but someone who lost their family and went out to hunt werewolves sounds an awful lot like their family were bitten and turned into them. While Pearl would neither confirm nor deny whether this was the case during her interview with Sausage, the aforementioned Mr. M, it would definitely make sense. It would also explain why she might turn to hunting werewolves, not the members of her family, but others. See, a common theme in both werewolf and vampire stories is that if you kill the creature that turned someone into one, their curse will be lifted. While at first it might seem like a stretch to assume that's how it works in the vampires universe, we actually have some evidence to support this. In episode 4, the townsfolk begin finding books with instructions on how to cure a vampire. While we don't know what all the steps are yet, we do know that one of the requirements is to kill the vampire's sire, the one who turned them. Sound familiar? Maybe Pearl is hunting werewolves because there is a similar way to save her family if she kills the werewolf who infected them. So now we know how Shelby and Pearl are connected to werewolves, but there's one more person who almost certainly is as well: Avid. Now, this is where those episode 5 spoilers are going to come into play, so I highly recommend you go and check out Avid's video if you haven't already. And while you're there, make sure to congratulate him for reaching 50,000 subs. The man has been working like crazy to reach that goal. Anyway, here's what we know about Avid. He was working with a partner in an attempt to hunt down monsters. Initially, we were led to believe that they were just your garden variety monster slayers, but we later discovered that there was more to it than that. They were actually trying to find ways of curing monsters, or rather, people who might be turning into monsters. See, when Avid was young, he and his friend Elle were attacked in the woods by some kind of monster. We don't know if this was the same friend who would later become his hunting partner, but the genders match, so it's a possibility. They managed to get away, but not before the monster slashed Avid across the neck. The wound never healed, and ever since then, Avid has been getting progressively sicker. We get some related werewolf lore when Avid mentions the wound to Pearl, wondering if the creature who attacked him might have been one. Pearl tells him that lycanthropy can be spread either through bites or through being scratched, and that the wounds werewolves leave do not fade until the victim either transforms or dies. So things aren't looking great for our boy. Now, until recently, that would have been all the connections, but there was another detail we got in episode 5, which pretty much confirmed a theory that people have been speculating about for a while. Before Avid came to Oakhurst, his aforementioned partner was bitten by something and transformed into a monster. In the past, Avid was always very cagey when talking about what exactly she turned into whenever it came up. Most viewers assumed it was a vampire thanks to his obsessions, but after meeting vampires firsthand, he reveals that they're nothing like what his partner was turned into, that she became something wild and feral. Wild like a wolf, perhaps? So yeah, despite what the gorgeous opening animation to his series suggests, Avid's partner was most likely not bitten by a vampire. There is instead a very good chance that it was a werewolf. And I just want to say that I called this twist weeks ago. What started as a crack theory in the comments of Pearl's second episode eventually grew into this video, and it still mostly makes sense. I mean, I was off by a couple of decades on some of the details, but who isn't this day? I mean, the Nintendo DS is still a brand new console, right? Oh no. Setting aside the existential crisis I just put myself through, we now have all of the details we need to bring this theory together properly, so here it goes. Avid, Shelby, and Pearl all had incidents involving a werewolf happen when they were younger. We don't know exactly how long ago it was for Avid or Pearl, but we know that for Shelby it was roughly 20 years ago. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to assume the other two happened around the same time. I believe that each of these attacks were by the same culprit, a singular werewolf. We know that two of them happened in or around the same area, Sunnyside Cliff, where Pearl and Shelby are both from. In episode 2, Pearl manages to deduce that Shelby is from there just by hearing that her father was killed by a werewolf. This seems to be hinting that the two attacks were part of the same event. Now, we don't know where Avid is from, so we can't just assume that he was part of the same attack, but all of the townsfolk lived somewhere in the vicinity of Oakhurst, so they can't have been too far apart. 3 werewolf attacks happening within traveling distance of the same town doesn't seem like a coincidence, it seems like a pattern. So let's assume that all 3 of our attacks were by the same werewolf. It killed Shelby's father, transformed Pearl's family, and infected Avid. So there's definitely enough evidence for those 3 to be related, but I think I can push it even further. I assert that the very same werewolf was the one who attacked and infected Avid's partner. Now, that one might seem like a little bit of a stretch at first. After all, even if we assume that the first 3 attacks happened around the same time, the 4th one clearly didn't happen until Avid was older. So how and why would Avid's partner be hunting the very same werewolf? Well, for that we need to remember a detail from earlier, the theory that killing a werewolf will cure its victims. We know that Avid was getting worse, and that his partner was trying to find a cure. In the process of searching for one, it's not out of the question that his partner would have heard the same rumor that Pearl must have at some point. So maybe in an attempt to save her partner, she hunted down the werewolf who infected him and tried to kill it. As we know, it did not go well for her. Now, all of this theorizing begs the question, who was this mysterious werewolf sire that was involved in so many of the players' lives? And the answer is, we don't know. Unfortunately, there simply isn't enough evidence about their identity to narrow it down. Maybe the hundreds of speculating comments on Ren's videos are right, and he is in fact a murderous werewolf, but I mean, look at the guy. Does the mild-mannered baker's son with the silly accent really give off killer werewolf vibes? I think not. But even though we don't know the culprit, we've been able to piece together a shocking amount of clues about what really happened, and I can't wait to learn more when Vampires SMP returns. That's it for this theory video. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This is a very different type of video from my usual content and took a ton of work to put together, so if you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like, and hey, maybe even consider subscribing. And if you have your own theories about Vampires SMP, feel free to share them in the comments. But until next time, be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and I will catch you on the airwaves. Stay tuned.